How's it going, guys?
Coach.
Go ahead, Joel Coleman.
Hey, Coach. You guys kind of have an interesting task right now. It seems like with all the guys that have come back and then a load full of newcomers. And how do you go right now with this pitching staff and all the talent that you've got? But how do you guys manage getting these guys enough innings to really get a feel for what you have and who you can rely on come February?
Well, that's been the task this fall. You're right. What we needed to do was get them in as many competitive situations as possible. Sometimes it's straightforward scrimmages. Sometimes it's putting them in those tough situations. But we really need to get a feel for who can compete right now. And that word compete, I say it and I mean a couple of different things. They have to learn how to compete against SEC hitters, a lot of the newcomers, competing against hitters that are of this caliber that they've never done before. But also, as you referred to, there's obviously competition among each other, among themselves, for those spots and roles and who's going to get the innings in the spring. So we felt like that was our priority number one as a coaching staff, was to get our guys in as many competitive situations as possible this fall to evaluate and give them as many chances as possible to impress us, to show us what they have, so to speak. So that's been our goal up to this point in the fall. And I think we've done a pretty good job of getting guys out there. Everybody's had about 6 or 7 outings up to this point, and which is probably a little more than what they'd have in a normal fall season.
Next, we'll go to Robbie Falk.
Hey, Scott. There was questions about the starting rotation going into last season. Of course, when you replace Ethan Small and Peyton Plumlee and a lot of those guys that had so many innings, you're going to have those questions when you're replacing them with a freshman and a sophomore. How do you feel? How far along have you felt like Christian McLeod and Eric Sarantola have come the last couple of years to be, possibly a 1-2 combination in the SEC?
Well, I'm very proud of those guys, and I think they've come a long way, and the way they have made so many strides is due to their work ethic and who they are as people and as baseball players, because they get after it every day. They have the right perspective. They never get too high or too low, and that's the mentality that you need in baseball in general, but maybe even more so as a starting pitcher. So they've been through some highs and lows, but handled them equally well, and got to this point in their careers in a position, like you said, to be a great 1-2 punch on the weekend for the SEC schedule. I feel like this fall, Christian has been fine-tuning his competitiveness that he had from last spring. I feel like, and I think Coach Lamonis has spoken to this in the past, but I feel like maybe Eric Sarantola was hurt the most by the shutdown last spring, because, man, every time he went out, it seemed like he was getting a little bit better and a little bit better. And so missing all the competition time last spring for a guy that I don't think it's a slight to call Eric a late bloomer. He's from a northern climate, and he saw a velocity spike his freshman year, and I think it's fair to call him. I think he'd tell you himself that he's fairly new to pitching compared with some other guys. So for him to miss that much time last spring, I was disappointed in that. But he has picked up where he left off this fall and understands, maybe with a little bit more sense of urgency, how important these innings this fall have been, and I think he continues to get better. So very happy with where both of those guys are. But they both have the mindset that we're striving for perfection, but never attaining it. And they're a long way from perfect, but they're going to keep getting better because of who they are as people.
Next, we'll go to Mike Nemeth.
Hey, Coach, when do you start looking at extending guys out, particularly guys that, you think are going to be starters come the spring? And is that a natural process in kind of weaning out your herd?
We won't really stretch anybody out this whole fall. I think we've been trying to just get them out there as many times as possible, but not taxing them to the point where we're getting them into starter shape this fall. I think some of them might throw, some of the starters might go 4 innings in this fall World Series upcoming. But the most anybody's gone up to this point is 3 innings. And that's purposeful because really I don't see any reason getting them into starter shape and then having the shutdown and the rest period that we're going to have, and then having to recrank them back up in January. You're just going to have to get them back in shape in January. So really, right now we needed to see who the candidates were to be starters. We needed to see how they could handle turning a lineup over more than once, maybe. So that was important to get them to 3 innings, but and maybe the 4th inning, like I said, this weekend. But to go any further than that, I think the balance between risk and reward for the fall is that we don't go any further than 4 innings.
We'll go back to Joel Coleman.
Just curious what so far with Brandon coming back from his surgery and things, what's he looked like? And I guess coming off of that surgery, would he be in the mix to maybe be a starter of some kind, or would his innings need to be limited somewhat given the surgery that he's coming off of?
Well, his innings are limited right now for sure. But we're really not evaluating Brandon right now in terms of a role. He is still in our minds in the rehab process. Now he's at the end of it, and so we were very excited to see him throw in a scrimmage game last weekend, and he'll throw a little bit in the Fall World Series as part of the rehab process. That's where he is right now. He needs to throw to hitters, and we're very happy with how he's come back from an arm strength standpoint, and really from a command standpoint. It's been very impressive. Most of the time, the guys coming off of that surgery get their arm strength back first, and then the command comes later, and then the secondary pitches come even later. Brandon's really been able to bring all of those things along really at the same pace. So I don't see that his command suffered. He's just not quite at 100% right now, but he's not supposed to be. Like I said, he's still in the middle of the rehab process. Jason Wire and Seth Diders have done a great job with him. They're our trainer and strength and conditioning coach. And we know he went to one of the best doctors in the country to have the surgery done. So we're very happy with him. But as far as being evaluated for a role, which was your question, we won't do that until the spring. But I can tell you that with Brandon's experience and what he's done here in the past and the type of character that he is, I think he's a very strong candidate to have a prominent role for us.
And we'll go back to Robbie Falk.
Coach, expounding on the statement about the Tommy John and just the elbow injury in general in baseball and in college baseball. Even a few years ago, that was an injury that would end a lot of careers, or guys would never really be the same. Now we're seeing, there's a pitcher, I think, in the World Series that's had 2 of those and has come back just fine. Brandon seems to have come back relatively well so far too, and pretty quick. How have you seen that injury progress over time, the rehabilitation of that injury progress as a pitching coach over time, and how quickly those guys are able to return, and a lot of guys getting a lot of that strength back?
Yeah, I think it speaks to probably a couple of things. It speaks to the medical community and that they've gotten better at that procedure and better at probably the operation, definitely better at the protocols for the rehabilitation of that surgery. But I also think it speaks to the strength of the current player, which is something that we've seen steadily improve over the last decade or so, and maybe even going back further to that. But these guys are just bigger and stronger, and their arms move faster than ever before. And it's probably a reason that they have the injury in the first place, because their arms moving that fast at a young age. But it also helps them as they're coming back, because their body is stronger, their shoulders stronger. We've made advancements in arm care and training protocols as coaches and trainers and doctors, that I think all of it has contributed to it, to guys coming back at a higher success rate. So that's a good thing for baseball. It's a bad thing we're having a lot of them, but it's a good thing that they all return relatively back to status quo, or even sometimes a little better in some cases than they were before the surgery.
And last one, we'll go to Joel Coleman.
I believe Chris mentioned to us last time we talked to him that you guys were kind of experimenting a little bit with Landon Sims and maybe a starting role a little bit, just kind of seeing what you had there. Just curious, how has that, I guess, affected him? How has he kind of looked experimenting that role? Does that really change who he is as a pitcher as opposed to what we saw out of the pen last year?
That is true. We've given Landon an opportunity to start this fall. Does it change him? I think the biggest thing is we have to add another pitch. He was mostly fastball, slider out of the bullpen, and when we've started him this fall, he's added a changeup, which he worked very hard on last spring and this summer. Really, since he's been here, he's worked hard on developing that changeup. Like a lot of guys that we get that are ultra talented, in high school, you really don't need a changeup because the guys that Mississippi State is able to get are throwing hard, and they have really good breaking balls, and really you're doing high school hitters a favor if you throw them a changeup. So a lot of times that's the pitch that they need to add when they come to us, and that was certainly the case with Landon, and he has done a good job with that. That's the main thing that I would say would change about it, is that he would be able to throw a third pitch to be able to get through the lineup multiple times. From a mentality standpoint, yes, you probably you're not operating off of adrenaline quite as much when you're a starting pitcher. I think you guys saw it, and our fan base saw Landon. The images in my mind are of him fist pumping and a lot of emotion coming off the mound in some of those big situations that he threw in as a reliever. And you'll have those at times as a starter, but you have to be, as I was talking about Christian and Eric, you kind of have to be a little more even keel as a starter. So from a mentality standpoint, that could be different. I think Landon's capable of doing all of those things. We certainly know how valuable he was to our team in the bullpen last year, and we know that he can serve in that role because he's done it. But I think in the future here, at some point, Landon Sims is going to be a starter at Mississippi State. So we wanted to go ahead and put him in that role this fall and let him compete in that role. And so we'll see what's best for the team when spring comes around. And it's just good to have an option like him that's versatile.
Thanks for your time today, Coach.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate
Looking
it,
forward to
Scott.
seeing you.
Thank you, Coach.